Hey, and welcome to another episode of Fast Forward, a podcast from QSR Magazine. My name is Sam Okus. I'm the editor of QSR and the editorial director of Food News Media. Today, we're continuing with our Restaurantology series, a partnership with Savory Fund that will feature new episodes daily all week this week, hosted both on the podcast platform, but also as videos online. This is episode 2 in the Restaurantology series. If you're just joining us, I highly encourage you to go check out our first episode in the series when we talk to R&R Barbecue President Neil Harford and Savory Management President Shauna Smith about how R&R is really leaning into its hospitality, its culture, and its people to recover from the pandemic and to really accelerate its growth plans. Again, you can catch the entire Restaurantology series all week this week on the Fast Forward podcast feed, which you can find wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can also stream videos of these panel sessions at savoryfund.com/restaurantology. That's restaurant OLOGY. And again, you can learn more about Savory Fund at that site as well. Today, I'm talking with two very exciting brand leaders from the Savory portfolio. Kimo Mack, who is the co-founder of Hawaiian-style fast casual Mobettas, and Chase Wardrop, who is the president of beverage and sweets chain Swig. They're going to be joined on this panel discussion by Jessica Moyer, who is the vice president of learning and development for Savory Management. What's so interesting about both Mobettas and Swig is that they're really not your typical restaurant concepts that are exploding across the country right now. They're not pizza, they're not burgers, they're not fried chicken, but they're both really doing interesting things with their menu. Again, Mobettas is a Hawaiian-style restaurant, which you really don't find in many restaurants across the U.S. And then Swig focuses on non-alcoholic beverages, primarily served through drive-through operations. Both of these companies are growing through the pandemic, and they are looking at even more growth ahead, which I think provides a really interesting model for us to dig into to talk about how these emerging concepts are focusing on growth for the post-pandemic environment. Before we get into this second episode of the Restaurantology series, as always, go to qsrmagazine.com for all the news and insights you need on the QSR and fast casual restaurant industries. And please feel free to email me anytime you want to talk or to share your perspective, sam@qsrmagazine.com. And again, stay tuned all week here at the podcast feed and at savoryfund.com/restaurantology for more episodes in this series that is aimed at helping emerging restaurant operators prepare for exciting growth and better profitability. All right, going to roll into this conversation now with Mobettas co-founder Kimo Mack, Swig President Chase Wardrop, and Savory Management Vice President of Learning and Development, Jessica Moyer. All right, I am excited to be joined today by Kimo Mack. He is the co-founder of Mobettas. Chase Wardrop, he is the president of Swig, and Jessica Moyer, who is representing Savory Management. Guys, thank you so much for joining me today. I know this is a busy time. All of you are actively trying to figure out how to thrive with your restaurant company, so I appreciate the time you're committing to me today. Where I want to start this conversation is I want to start with Kimo and Chase. You guys just talking a little bit about your businesses, the sort of origin stories of these concepts, where they came from. Kimo, let's start with you. Let's talk about Mobettas. Where did this business come from? How did you start it?
So first of all, I'm Kimo Mack, like you said, and I'm from the island of Hawaii. I was born and raised there. My wife and I, back in 2008, decided to make a move. We've lived there our whole lives, and we decided to move here to Utah, where we reside now. When we got here, my brother and I, and along with my wife, decided to start Mobettas, and that was in 2008. And the concept is pretty simple. We simply make food that we make at home. It's no culinary secret, but we make food that you would typically see at a backyard gathering in Hawaii or down on the beach. It's mostly barbecue type items. They're staples in Hawaii. The dishes that we make and serve, you'll find at a lot of different places. You know, here on the mainland, a lot of people like hamburgers and French fries and Mexican food. In Hawaii, we eat plate lunch, and so that's the concept that we wrapped ourselves around. And so we started that in 2008. and we're still doing it till today.
Were you a chef? Where did the background in food come from? Or was it just something that you were passionate about this and you wanted to share it with the mainland audience?
Yeah, no, I'm not a chef. I don't have any formal culinary training other than what my mom taught me and what I learned. And I had some small restaurant experience during high school as a high school job. I was actually a bus driver. I was a bus driver for 15 years prior to spreading my entrepreneurial wings. But my brother and I have always been expected to cook at home when we were growing up, and so we kind of used those talents that we had, that we learned from mom and my aunties back home on the island, and there you go. And we packaged it up together in a concept.
Well, it's incredibly unique because, there's just not really Hawaiian style concepts very much here on the mainland. And what kind of response did you get from folks when you opened this Hawaiian style restaurant? Because I'm sure people were just like, what is this? They had nothing to compare it to.
No, it was interesting because, back in Hawaii, everybody knows what it is and everybody likes it. This is what everybody eats. And when we came here, there were some small mom and pop ones that were open that were somewhat successful, and I just figured if we could get the food into people's hands, they would like it. They just don't know that they like it yet.
Yeah, and
so that was quite the challenge at the beginning. Was bringing people in and finding people willing to try it. But it exceeded my expectations. They liked it a lot more than I thought they would.
Yeah. That's great. And just real quick, tell me what the Mobettas name means.
So Mobeta is simply the Hawaiian style way of saying more better.
Okay.
It's not language. It's just, in fact, I find out that they actually use that phrase in the South. They say that something is more better than something else. They say, oh, it's Mobeta. So.
Well, hey, I'm in the South. I don't know if I've heard it, but I'm going to start using it because I think that's a great idea. I'm going to spread it to all my folks here in the South. All right, Chase, let's go to you. Let's talk about Swig. Tell me about this brand. How did it get its start? What's the story of Swig?
Perfect. Well, first off, thanks for having us on. So Swig started in 2010 in St. George, and it all started with as Nicole Tanner, the founder, would say, a love of a good Diet Coke. She was going to Sonic very regularly, and she was waiting in lines and trying to just get a good Diet Coke with some pebbled ice. And she was having to wait in lines behind people who were ordering hamburgers, hot dogs, corn dogs, all those things. And believe it or not, like the scent and the oils get on the cups and in the drinks. So it's not pure. It's not the best. And so she, decided, I love drinks. I love Diet Coke. I want it to be as convenient as possible. And so she started a drive-through drink shop in St. George, Utah, 2010, kind of like the height of the recession. And it started off real slow. 1-2 people would come in a day. And then pretty soon it started gaining massive traction. They added cookies, and very quickly it became the thing to do going through St. George. So if you ever went through St. George, that was on like TripAdvisor, #1 thing to do in St. George, Utah. And so when spring break hit and people from California, Arizona, Utah, northern Utah would come down, there would just be massive lines. And the word started to spread about this small shack that sold drive-through drinks. And they put unique flavors in them, like nut and lime. And really quickly, it just took off from there. People were waiting in line for 45 minutes to an hour to get, this $2 drink with coconut and lime in it. So we quickly opened up the second location to relieve pressure, and kind of the rest is history. Now we're at 25 stores.
Wow. Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, some people might think, oh, just selling soda. But I mean, thinking about my mom is that typical person who drives through the McDonald's drive-through just for a Diet Coke because she swears they do it better. And I mean, there's millions of those people out there who think that. Did you have to overcome some misperceptions early on that this was too niche a business? I mean, why do you think something like this worked when it seems so laser focused on one kind of core menu product?
Well, I just think it's a feel-good item people want to pick me up in their day. You know, we call it's happiness in a cup. That's our motto. And people just need that pick me up during the day, and they also want the convenience. So we make sure we pride ourselves in having the best sodas, the best tasting sodas, and making it as convenient as possible. We come to your car, take your orders, so it's a really personal experience. And we also do that so we have order accuracy, you know? So we try to make it as seamless as possible. And yeah, there's a lot of people who love Diet Coke, Dr. Pepper. I mean, that's why they're huge brands. So we're just making it a little more accessible for everyone to come get their favorite drink.
I've been curious. I've loved following Swig these last few years. I've gotten to know the business, and I've been curious to ask you whether or not, you know, when you work with CocaCola, who's enormously particular about their, you know, their product and what goes into their product. I mean, has there ever been any, I mean, do you work with them on coming up with recipes? Are they cool with you guys, like, playing around with different flavors?
Oh yeah, no, we've been talking about flying us out to Atlanta, New York for Pepsi, and going to their headquarters to try this out. I mean, we're kind of trendsetters. Look at Diet Coke now. Diet Coke, there's a ginger lime, there's all these, like, they're coming off with unique flavors. And, you know, so I would say we pioneered that trend and made it open their eyes. I know we're just small fish, but the flavored drink section, I mean, you used to go to a gas station and you'd look at a energy drink refrigerator and it was one glass door. Mm-hmm. And now there's 6 glass doors of hundreds of flavors. So I think this business model and, like, flavored drinks is here to stay, because we see how much money Coke and Pepsi are dumping into creating, you know, these new drinks and new flavor profiles. So they're always really excited, as whenever we sell Diet Coke, they're happy. So
yeah, that's true. Yeah, you're basically becoming their R&D for them, right? You can start sliding them some recipes that they can start developing in bottles.
That's what I say. I try to tell our Coke rep that we need to just partner all day. Just
there you go.
So folks listening, come on over.
There you go. A plea for business. Now, Jessica, I want to talk to you real quick too. Tell us a little bit about what you do for Savory Management, and then also tell me a little bit about what you think of these 2 brands, Mobettas and Swig. These are 2 of, you know, the original concepts within Savory Fund. I know these have been under the portfolio for a few years now. So tell me a bit about what you do and how these brands kind of fit within the Savory Savory Fund portfolio.
Yeah, for sure. Again, Sam, thanks for having us on. I am the VP of Learning and Development for Savory Management. And what I do is I get to actually work really closely with the founders and the presidents of the brands to help scale the business. So to help put processes and systems and trainings in place so that we can continue to grow, and that we can grow at the speed that we like to grow here at Savory. And the second part of your question was how we interact with Mobettas and Swig.
Yeah, and also just, like, you know, these being 2 of the kind of original brands within the Savory Fund, you know, why are these 2 brands, I guess, exciting to you to be able to work with? What kind of potential you see in them?
Oh, well, not only is it a pleasure to work with the founders and the presidents of the brands, but it's also with Mobetta specifically, I'll talk about them individually, because they were the people that we started this whole concept with. Not the people themselves, Kimo and Kalani are such a pleasure to work with. And they also have a very specific point of view around why they exist in the universe and how we were going to bring this Hawaiian style food into just being a common stop for people who go out to eat. That it seemed like an obvious choice. Not only that, but when you taste the food, I don't know if you've had the pleasure of eating at Mobettas.
Not yet.
It's transformative. That food is so good. It's so good. And you get, like, from the moment you walk in, you can hear the grill cooking the food fresh from scratch, and it just changes everything. So it is something that just the product alone, as well as the people, made it an easy way to blend what we do together. With Swig, honestly, I'm going to be I'm going to be super honest. When you first partner with Swig, I think it's the same thing. It's like you sell soda, and there is money in doing that and just having that be its singular product. But as a coffee drinker, like being able to tie those concepts together made a lot of sense to me, because you could easily go to a gas station and get a coffee for $1. It's probably not going to be very good. Or I could go to Starbucks and pay $6 for this customized version of a very basic drink. And that's exactly what Swig does. We sell happiness in a cup, and customers love it. And we have a very, what's the word I would use to describe it? Our customers love the brand so much that it just made sense when we did the partnership to start to make it so that we could scale that.
Passion. That must be the word you're looking for. They must be passionate about it. I mean, if they keep coming back over and over, right? That's the beauty of loyal customers.
They're fanatics. That's the word I was looking for.
There you go.
Both
Even
of our
more.
brands have fanatics. Yeah, which is amazing.
So, of course, March 2020 happens, and here we are. Everything feels different, right? Obviously, you guys had to pivot your brands to respond to the challenges of the pandemic. What did that look like? Chase, let's start with you and Swig. I mean, I'm going to go ahead and presume here that you guys were kind of set up well for this because you were leaning into drive-through so heavily. But tell me how you guys had to respond to everything, particularly early on in the pandemic.
No, yeah, those were crazy times. The last 2.5 years, we went back and just refined the brand and really invested heavily into technology to make our drive-thru experience as seamless as possible. And so when the pandemic hit, every day we were on a call as a team, the Savory Management platform and us, and we're just figuring out day by day, what are the new requirements? What's the CDC guidelines telling us we need to do? And honestly, reassuring our team members that, we're taking all the precautions possible to make Swig a very safe place, and that, they can tell their parents, their loved ones, that they're going into work and it's a safe spot. That was our number one priority, is just making sure that they felt safe. But the customers, they needed something. They wanted a little bit of normalcy, and they also wanted a place that they could feel safe. We are very early adapters to gloves. We are very early adapters to not swiping credit cards, to wearing masks. And all those things, I think, reassured our customers that we were taking it very seriously, and we care for our team's safety and their safety. And because of that, I think, they saw how much we care, and they just started coming. We actually, we were super lucky, blessed to have an increase in business. It dipped for about a week when everyone was a little unsure of what was happening, and we had some lockdowns, but then business just spiked. And, it was a weird time figuring out how to get everyone in place to handle that and the new norms of what COVID brought. And so we're lucky that we did invest in the technology early before all this happened, so we could handle the influx of business. But man, those were some scary times for a little bit and just uncertain. But
yeah, I remember that the uncertainty was scary, because no matter how your brand was positioned, so much being unknown, especially for guests not knowing how this thing was spreading and not wanting to take any chances and just staying home for a while. Obviously, that was the hardest hit for the restaurant industry. Kimo, tell me about Mobettas. What did you guys have to do? I mean, I know I'm gonna guess that you guys have a significant on-premises business, and so that probably disappeared. But what did you guys have to do to accommodate the changes in the pandemic?
So fortunately, for us, we have some drive-throughs, which was good. And here in the state, fortunately, they didn't shut us down completely. We were still allowed to operate, but man, it happened so fast. It happened over the course of a weekend, where we started getting information, from the local health authorities and so forth. And I gotta admit, me personally, it put me into a twirl. Like I felt like, at first I felt like, why is this happening? And this, I felt like our business was just gonna crumble. and stuff. But credit to our teams, to Jessica and the platform teams, man, they defined deployment, man. They deployed their talents and their efforts. Phone calls, like Chase says, they had a team phone call every morning. All the brands were represented. Talked about all the guidelines as they were changing day to day. What was working in every brand, what wasn't working in every brand. Just really, if you look up synergy in the dictionary, you'll find our teams listed there under synergy. They were bringing all their thoughts and bringing everything that they were doing. Some things weren't working and some things were. And it was for me personally, and watching the business go through this pivot and transformation, like, it was inspiring. I noticed that our teams at the store level were being included on what was working as well, and getting their ideas, and that engagement for them, man, it was transformative in our teams as well, and in the morale and people coming together. And it was awesome. Like, I don't know that I would trade this experience now. 6 months ago, if you asked me if I would wish that COVID be gone, I'd say yes. But now, seeing what the things that we've benefited from it, what we've learned, I feel like we're real hard to compete with now. I really.
Yeah, I said that to my wife just this morning, that I think someday we're going to look back on this time and recognize that it was, it made us better, stronger people, in certain ways, for as hard as it's been. Jessica, from your standpoint, Chase and Kimo just talked to us about that role that you guys have played for them as being partners and helping them through this time. I know when it comes to something like, private equity, when you get an investment partner, I think some people might see that just as a financial transaction and a financial support, but clearly it goes beyond that, and clearly Savory is taking things beyond that, and that you're helping them very much from an operational standpoint. So what do you see that role as being in a season like this when they're going through a crisis? How can you guys be there for them to navigate through these challenges with them?
Yeah, I think that there is the different levels of private equity where, like you said, you're just going to take a check. We are partners. We're partners in the business, and we take that partnership very, very seriously. The thing that makes us really good partners is that we are operators at our core. We've all been in the field. We've been in the restaurants. We've managed stores. We've been in the multi-unit roles. We've been in a bunch of different roles within the restaurant. And so it isn't this scary concept of like, oh my goodness, how are we going to keep these restaurants open? Because we have enough experience collectively to figure out a solution. So when Kimo talks about synergy, I think that was something that is just part of our core, and it was able to come to life during at the beginning of the pandemic. There were 3 specific things that we were going after, which is, how are we going to keep our employees safe? How are we going to keep our employees working, assuming that the laws allow us to? And how are we going to keep our customers eating well? That was it. And then we very, very quickly came into a phased program where 1 through 5 different phases of what does it look like based off of the CDC recommendations and the health standards. How do we play in this new space, and how do we adapt and communicate that adoption very quickly to our customers so they know how they can get our food. It was never an option to close the doors and lay off a bunch of employees. I think that was probably one of our biggest driving factors. We needed to figure it out. And it would have been so much easier. And we talk about this all the time. It would have been so much easier to close the doors than it was to stay open and have to figure out how we get digital drive-throughs in our parking lots, how we create this experience for a complete shift to off-premise. How do we make it so we close lobbies so our customers can come through the lobbies? What does it look like with Swig so we can get more line busters out there so we can take in more orders and take care of the huge flow of customers that are now coming in for some relief? It was a lot, and we were able to partner really, really well together, but the communication at the very beginning, we talked every single day for a minimum of an hour around, this is the strategy, this is the updates from the health department, and this is what we're going to do. And we're fortunate to have a really good group of executors on the field that helped us make it happen. But it's a collaborative effort, and I feel the same way. We learned a lot. Would I want to do it again? Probably not. Would we be more prepared if we had to do it again? 100%. Like, we are so much stronger as a business now with all of our brands than we were going into it.
Yeah, and it's been interesting as we've gone through this season, as it's been kind of ups and downs with restrictions and regulations, and it does seem like over time people got better and better at responding to them because you learn and you grow and you get better at doing this. I want to talk about growth because for Mobettas and Swig, you guys are both still growing, and in fact maybe in a better position to grow now. I mean, that's the interesting thing about this season, is how much of the silver lining is there's going to be a lot of opportunity on the other side of this pandemic. There's going to be a lot of real estate available, and I know you guys both of your brands are looking at opportunities to grow. And I want to talk about that not only from a standpoint of, how much you can grow, but what that growth looks like, what kind of real estate you look into, and how you can kind of expand the business, not just from a physical storefront footprint. Kimo, for Mobettas, what was the growth trajectory for you guys before the pandemic, and how has the pandemic maybe altered that, if at all?
So we've held steady on our growth, actually. We kind of just went with it. And I think that's part of the risk that comes with the business. I think fortunately for us, we saw sales drop the first 3 weeks of COVID. And by the time we were a month out, things, as far as revenue, things seemed to start normalizing. And so when we had these, commitments, I mean, we had these huge commitments to these builders that we already had in motion. We just felt pretty comfortable with going ahead and opening them. Of course, they weren't these big extravagant openings that we would typically have. They were very soft openings. And we've opened, to this day, we've opened 4 new units since COVID has started.
Wow!
And the response has been great. We're operating the stores that have drive-throughs. We're still doing our curbside service. Social distancing in the store, and we're just playing the cards that are being dealt to us and trying to do a good job with that. Are there challenges? Yeah, there's been tons, but you take it day by day, and you just keep to the plan. We actually will have one more opening before the end of the year, which will make 5 stores since COVID started, and we just do our best to keep to the principles that work in business, and hope that invisible hand comes and takes care of the other end for us.
Sure. Yeah, and you're at 13, 14 locations total, is that right?
We're at, by the end of the year, it'll be 18 total.
18. Oh, hey man, I was way off. So, and it's primarily Utah, Idaho, is that right?
So far, we have one there in the Boise area, and the rest are spread all over the state of Utah right now. Yeah.
How does it look to expand a business like Mobettas, geographically speaking? Because there's not exactly, I mean, unless you're going to go drop one in Honolulu, there's not necessarily a region of the U.S. that I imagine a Hawaiian style fast casual is going to play better in than any other. I mean, do you feel like the whole country is just kind of an opportunity? Is all of it's just white space, or how are you targeting that geographic growth?
It's interesting when we first opened 12 years ago, and as people who are traveling, we get so many travelers here in Utah because of the ski industry, because of the outdoors industry, and the church industry, you can call it that here.
Sure.
Utah. We get a lot of visitors, and over the course of years, man, I've been getting emails from all over the country, from the weirdest places. Like, I'm from an island, I'm from Oahu. I don't get out. I've never gotten out much. And so, I'm getting emails from North Dakota and from Iowa and from Dallas, and like, hey, you ought to come here. I think you do really great here and stuff. And so I think we're unique enough that we could go to a lot of different markets. I don't see that we directly compete with any, concept other than, in that Hawaiian Asian genre, which I feel is grossly underrepresented. And so really I'm open to anything. If the economics are right, we'll give it a shot. And I think we could succeed almost anywhere.
Now, Chase, for Swig, we've done a couple stories with QSR about some of your growth, because I find this fascinating what you guys are doing with this sort of new prototype you guys have, which is sort of a modular shipping container approach where you can sort of put these shipping containers together into a location, drop it into like a parking lot, basically. So it seems like you need very little real estate in order to do this. It's probably really fast to get a store up and running. It just seems to me like there's so much opportunity in that. You're really rethinking the idea of what your footprint can be. And, I think a lot of brands are probably jealous about that, because so much of the conversation for the last 7 months has been around, real estate, how that's going to change the notion of, how off-premises opens doors for service, things like that. So here you guys have this great model where you can drop a very small footprint into a parking lot, do drive-through. Tell me more about that, how that whole model came to be and how much you're kind of leaning into it for Swig's growth.
Oh, yeah. We are extremely excited about the container model. So in Utah, on all the corners in the summer, there are just portable shaved ice like trailers. And we're like, why don't we do something like that? And then we started exploring more and more ideas. And we saw how big of a problem it is with, how much the US imports. Everything comes over in these containers. And so, we saw that a few people are doing houses and tiny homes out of these, and we could create a restaurant and let's reuse these containers. So we started going down that path, and we just thought it'd be so easy. These things are built to stack on top of each other, really well engineered, and landlords are going to love it because, everywhere it seems like it's overparked, at least here in Utah and Arizona. And so we'll just drop them and add value to landlords. Who wouldn't want us in their parking lot? Well, we quickly figured out cities don't want us in their parking lot.
Minor detail.
Yeah, that was a big, we missed that one. And it's taken a long time to get through cities. Like, it's just crazy how much red tape, because it's so new. Mm-hmm. So we're really, pioneering this concept. And it took a lot more engineering than we ever thought. So it's been in the works for the last year and a half, and it's just been engineering and city issues. Landlords are loving it. And, because of the Savory platform and all the relationships we've been able to create, we are getting a lot of landlords wanting us in their parking lot, which has been fantastic. But having to shrink our footprint from 1,500 square feet to 500 square feet was quite the challenge. We got really good at Tetris, organizing, because every inch matters in 500 square feet. So it's just been, quite a ride. And we're now feeling like we're in a good spot where we're on version 3 of our container model, just because we've learned so much after each one. And we now, by the end of the year, we're opening up 5 in December. So one thing that happened with the coronavirus is cities shut down. A lot of workflow just got paused and halted. So we're hoping to open up 10 stores throughout the year of 2020. And we've opened up 5, and we're going to open up 1 actually next week. So we've opened up 4, and we're opening up 1 next week. And then we're looking at 5 in December. And it's just because all the workflow from cities, architects got delayed. So we're now, we're hoping to open up 5 in 2 weeks, which is going to be, Merry Christmas to us. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're excited about the growth, and I think this will open up a lot of doors for us. Yeah.
So this is a bit of a nuts and bolts question, but how does this process work to pursue something like a parking lot strategy? Because normally, your traditional method of finding a great restaurant location is, you've got these landlords of these, developments where they've got an end cap or inline, whatever, and you work with the landlord on this. But in this case, it just seems like, there's parking lots. Half of the U.S. it feels like is a parking lot, right? So there's so much opportunity. Is it just the same thing where you find out whoever owns that parking lot and say, I want to take up 5 spots worth. Can you let me put this right here?
That's actually exactly what we do. We just go to landlords and we're like, it looks like you're underparked, And if once we get them on board, then we have to do a few studies and make sure they are actually overparked. So once we go through those studies, then we can figure out with the city and show them that, hey, we're going to take up 5 parking stalls. It's not going to affect their business. It's not going to create any issues. And yeah, we were thinking that this would be so much cheaper. I mean, they're just shipping containers. The build process is extremely fast. And we're like, man, this is going to be so cheap. This is the easy way of growth. But we quickly realized that these things are way more expensive than TIs. So our growth strategy is to maintain a few TIs and end caps where we can get them, and then also grow with the container model. So yeah, it's pretty exciting. You'll have to come check one out.
Yeah, someday soon. I know. I know a lot of parking lots around near me. So yeah, if you need me to go scout some parking lots, you just let me know. Jessica, for Savory's standpoint, obviously you have a couple of brands here with unique expansion strategies. What does it look like to be able to sort of leverage the resources across the brands and be able to sort of educate each of the brands on, expansion? I mean, are you going to look and see what Mobettas did and then go to your other brands and then, work with them on some of these learnings that Mobettas had and vice versa? I mean, how does this all look when you're helping them sort through their expansion strategies? What is the role that you can play? What are the benefits of having now 5 brands within your portfolio?
I think from specifically with the growth, if that's what you're referring to, with being able to grow, one of the benefits of having multiple brands under the same portfolio is that we are able to learn very quickly from missteps or just challenges that we've had from one brand to another. For example, like if we just take the container strategy approach, the container strategy, it seems really eco-friendly. It seems like initially on paper, it was like, yeah, this is going to be a really good idea. It's going to save us some money. Maybe this is something that we could potentially, if it works well for Swig, why not explore it in other brands? But it just like what Chase was saying, it's exactly like a ground up. The issues that we have with the cities and the municipalities, they treat it exactly the same. And so it ends up being a lot more expensive. So that would be something where it's like, we're going to continue that strategy with Swig because it's going to work. But it might not be something that we're going to be recommending to Mobettas in the future just because it doesn't make sense. It would make more sense to invest our time in what we already do well, which are ground ups, inlines, and then figuring out what our drive-through strategy is going to be in the future. But we definitely take some of the challenges that we have from one brand and from each brand and try to learn from those, adapt, and make sure that we don't recommend the same solution or that we guide away from a different solution with the rest of our partners. That doesn't mean that we're not going to learn, and every single restaurant's going to have its own pinch point. So it's not as if we're testing like all these bad things with Swig so that we don't do them at Mobettas. It's an equal model of figuring out what works across the brands and then sharing best practices.
I'm going to sink Swig so that Mobettas can swim.
Yes.
So I mentioned that word opportunity earlier, and again, it's sort of weird to talk about. Of course, having to reference the fact that this has been such a challenging season for many people have had to close businesses, and that's not a good thing. But if you were to look at a silver lining, of course, it does mean that there's a lot of real estate available. And from what I've been talking to people, it sounds like, construction rates are going to come down. There's going to be all this used equipment on the market. There's opportunity there as it relates to expansion that you guys can take advantage of. How do you take advantage of that? I mean, do you guys find that, there's better real estate available, that real estate's more affordable, and how do you maybe use that to your advantage in accelerating your expansion? Kimo, let's start with you and Mobettas.
So first of all, we opened in 2008, in the summer of 2008. And so we opened just in time for the last recession. And so we went through the full brunt of that. And fortunately though, for us, there was a lot of opportunities that became of that. In fact, our first 3 locations were Gen 2 spaces. We went in and just sort of retrofitted it to our needs. And I got good at it. By the time we opened our 3rd location, which is in Logan, Utah, we got our doors open for about the price of a used car.
Wow.
And, you know, and don't get me wrong, we put a lot of money into it since then. But you know what? We were open and we had revenue coming in, and we were able to pay for these renovations that we could do. And so, you know, if you look at the economic situation that's here and that's probably still coming, you know, there's a lot of people in the market that have been there the last few years that probably shouldn't have been. You know, they've been surviving on the fact that the market's been great, but it's been challenging over the last few years finding the right locations because there's so many people competing for them. You know, now with what's probably going to happen and there's a thinning out of businesses and so forth. There are going to be a lot of good places to be, and we just need to be poised for those opportunities and be ready to go as they appear. And so that's always been our philosophy since the last recession, is just be ready when those opportunities come.
That's a great point that there are a lot of lessons to pull from the recession. It's interesting how there's a lot of overlap. The labor part of this, I'm sure, is another similarity. Chase, how is Swig taking advantage of some of the opportunity that's out there?
Yeah, so it's unfortunate that with everything that's happened, but we are opening up our doors to a lot of new team members, and, you know, we are able to provide good opportunities as we grow. So we've seen that hiring has been a little easier during these times. And so that's been huge for us. And then also, just like Kimo was saying, real estate, landlords are excited and wanting to make deals happen because a lot of properties right now, it's uncertain whether, you know, people are giving rent, helping them out with their rent, and landlords are just wanting to have people in their centers who are going to pay. And so deals are coming through quicker because if you're willing to pay, landlords want you there, just with how uncertain things are. So that's what's been exciting, is we actually are able to make a few more deals happen because of this.
Mm-hmm. And Jessica, I assume Savory is trying to help be a part of that, trying to stay on top of what that opportunity is, so that you guys can guide your brands to the opportunities as you see it.
Yeah, of course. And the reality is like when it comes to real estate selection, it does all come down to supply and demand. And there is this shift that has been talked about a lot in the restaurant industry of everything moving to off-premise and drive-through. We're keeping our options open because at the end of the day, an A+ site is always going to stay there. It's still an A+ site and it's still going to be expensive. And when we have smaller companies that are fighting for the same spot that Chick-fil-A and Shake Shack are fighting for, we're just not going to win that war. So the container strategy is a way that it opens us up in an opportunity where we wouldn't have had it before. But we believe that customers are wanting a frictionless experience, and that whether that's provided with drive-through, or that we're also betting that customers are going to continue to come back into restaurants and want to eat and experience a restaurant as it was meant to be. So we're keeping all options open and not over-indexing on let's fight for every single drive-through location, because it's just not plausible. So it's a strategy that's a mixed bag, just like it was before, but it does definitely lend itself to a lot more opportunity, because there's unfortunately a lot of our partners in the restaurant world have not been able to survive, and it does open up opportunities for us to be able to take open those spaces. So. Yeah, for sure. All right, so as we kind of wind down here, just a couple quick more questions. I'm wondering what you guys think about what 2021 looks like. Of course, taking into account the fact that we have no idea when this season is officially behind us, and very likely it won't be a switch that you flip and boom, it's done. It's going to be a very gradual process. But as you look ahead to next year, considering the opportunity that is available to you, and considering just sort of the trends of where everything's going, what do you guys think of the industry next year? What do you think things are going to be like, and how do you think your brands will be a part of that? Chase, let's start with you at Swig.
Yeah, I think for just restaurateurs, there's a lot of space for innovation. For people who are wanting to start restaurants, I think it's going to be a good opportunity. You know, as rates come down, rents come their time and put in the work to start a brand, I think it's going to be possible for sure. So I think
Looks like we're losing Chase here. Chase, I think you might have froze.
Chase, you're frozen.
Frozen Chase. Well, Kimo, let's move over to you while Chase, we wait for Chase to come back. Tell us what you think next year is going to look like.
I'm actually really optimistic for next year. Of course, we have an election coming up here in a week, which could, dictate economics. But you know what? I've learned in this industry that it's hard no matter what. And if you're not feeling some level of pressure, then you're probably not growing. You're probably not doing what you should be doing to grow your business. Because even when things are great, there's always some kind of pressure. There's always something that's moving you every day. And so, it's a daily fight, no matter how the markets are going. And so I'm optimistic. I feel like we have great teams that are going to execute the things that we need to get done. We're shooting for 12 locations next year. I know we're planning somewhere between 15 and 17, and we hope to come away with 12 units opening during 2021. Half of those will be in a new market. We're looking at being south somewhere, possibly Oklahoma City, possibly Dallas somewhere, and those are challenging in and of itself. But I'm optimistic. I think there's a lot of great opportunities that's going to come by as well, and not just for us, but like Chase was talking about for new concepts, for new entrepreneurs. And man, it's just a fight. You just got to get out there and you got to fight for it every day and work on your business every day and just constantly try to make things better and try to make, try to perfect what you're doing. And I think we can all succeed.
Yeah. All right. Last question. You guys both mentioned this idea of, smaller emerging restaurant operators and, what is possible out of this season. So my last question for you guys is, considering what Kimo and Chase, especially considering the fact that you guys were in those shoes as having started your own restaurant concepts or grown a emerging restaurant concept, and now you're on the path to expansion and these great things. What is your advice to your peers who are in those shoes now? What would you suggest they do right now to set their brands up for success down the road? Kimo, let's go back to you. What would that advice be?
I think for me, the number one thing is to be 100% honest, and not just in your business dealings, but with yourself as to how your business is doing. Sometimes we have these rough spots and we'll blame, oh, we got a bad location, or we have a bad this or that. Stop making excuses and be 100% honest. Your customers, your feedback, take that feedback very well. If they're not coming in, they're not coming in for a reason. And so just be 100% honest. Be 100% honest with the revenue you're making, with whether or not it actually justifies you being there. Be 100% honest with what you're paying your employees. It's, a lot of times businesses have this appearance of doing really well, but yet they're paying everybody under the table. Hey, let's be honest. Let's be real honest about what we're trying to grow. Have that clear vision of mind of where you're trying to take it, and whether or not your business practices are honestly getting you there. And so that would be my number one.
That's good. Yeah. Chase, how about you? What is that advice that you would have to other operators in those shoes, starting their own businesses and getting them off the ground?
I think being patient and really working inside your business is a big deal. Don't try to grow too fast. We spent 2 years refining just systems and processes, and like what Kimo was saying, really getting to know what our customers' needs and wants are. And we're now at a point where, it's now time to scale. It's now time to grow. And so make sure you really understand every part of the business and then refine those processes. I think that's what makes you successful. A lot of people can, well, they say with McDonald's, cook a good hamburger, but McDonald's has the best processes and systems. So invest the time and the money into making sure your process is ready for growth.
Yeah, that's great. Jessica, I'm going to give you the final word. From Savory's standpoint too, and knowing what you know about how Kimo and Chase have gotten their brands to this point, if you thought about this question, if you thought about, you're talking to another restaurant operator who's just now kind of entering this phase of growth, what is your advice for what they should be doing right now?
Well, I think the advice from Kimo and Chase is sound, but it would kind of mirror what they're saying. Honestly, don't grow for growth's sake. I think there is a huge benefit in the pause and perfect model, which we recommend to a lot of companies that we meet with, is pause and perfect your operation to make sure that you're foundationally sound. Are you creating processes that can scale or that even work with your current operation if you're really being honest with yourself? Shore up your balance sheet, stash cash, restructure your operation and your investment. Make sure that you are financially sound. And that is a big portion of pausing and perfecting your operation. There is it's enticing right now to be able to take advantage of some of the deals that are going to become available through real estate. But it doesn't matter if you are growing an operation that is going to fall apart the moment that you open your second location or third or fourth location, because you have not trued up your operation system. And I think that is the best advice that I can give to anyone out there who's like, what should I do? What's the next step? How do I continue to grow? Don't grow for growth's sake. Make sure that you're as strong as possible. And there's just as much benefit in pausing as perfecting as there is in growth.
Mm. Yeah, that's really great. Hey guys, Kimo, Chase, Jessica, I really appreciate your guys' time today and your insights. This is really valuable stuff. So thank you so much and take care.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
There you have it. That's my conversation with Kimo Mack, the co-founder of Mobettas, Chase Wardrop, the president of Swig, and Jessica Moyer, the vice president of learning and development at Savory Management. Again, we're going to be rolling out daily episodes all week this week in the Restaurantology series. So please come back tomorrow to check out the next episode, where I'm going to be talking to Michael Rosen, the founder of the Crack Shack, Brandon and Zane Hunt, who are the co-founders behind Via 313 Pizzeria, and Andrew Smith, who is the managing director behind Savory Fund. As you might know, the Crack Shack and Via 313 are the most recent acquisitions by Savory. And so Mike Rosen and the Hunt brothers are going to be sharing all about how that process went, how they set their brands up for a deal, and how emerging restaurant operators should be looking for their own investment partners. We'll talk to you again then.